Hi guys, good morning or maybe afternoon if you're on the other side of the country. This is Emily Sosha from emilysosha.com, and I am coming on to do the live that I promised you from my last video that I did yesterday. Yesterday I talked all about different ways that we experience stress, right? So we're always experiencing stress, or maybe you absolutely will at some point in your lifetime, right? And so today I wanted to come on and talk about how do we manage it, right? Because you're going to experience it at some point, so you've got to figure out a good way to manage it. But before I do that, I wanted to talk about the 4 ways that we experience stress, because I think that that's super important, and it can often give us better methods of managing it, especially if we can figure out where it's coming from and maybe why it feels so overwhelming or strenuous. So let's just dive into the 4 different ways that people experience stress. And number 1 is biological or chemical. So it could be the internal systems of your body and kind of what's going on there. So maybe an internal disease or something's going on biologically with your stomach or your liver or your kidneys, right? Something like that. That can be stressful, right? If your health is not 100%. Number 2, which is probably the one that we think of the most, is mental or emotional. So our thoughts and our beliefs and our feelings about stress. And like I mentioned in the other video, sometimes it doesn't even have to be real. In fact, oftentimes it isn't, right? It's something that we've totally created ourselves, and yet it feels super overwhelming, which does not feel good. Number 3 is spiritual. So this one was super just intriguing for me, because I realized that it was one that I had been neglecting for years. And I'm certainly not going to talk all about religion or spirituality or anything like that. It's not really the space for it right now. But I will say that having a connection to something greater than you, or at least understanding your connection to something greater than you, whatever it may be, right? Whatever it is, that can be stressful. A lack of that can feel stressful. It can feel like you're kind of wandering around alone in the world, and like maybe there's no real purpose, instead of knowing that you're here for a reason and you're here to live out your goals, right? And then the last one, number 4, is structural. So that is like your physical body. If number 1 was biological and chemical, so that was the inside of your body, 4 is structural. So your actual bones and muscle and tissue, right? So if you have a broken leg or a broken arm, that can be really stressful, or like physical pain in your body somewhere, that can cause an enormous amount of stress. Hey Joe, how are you? And that can cause an enormous amount of stress and not feel good at all. So those are the 4 ways: biological, chemical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and then structural. So it's helpful to just kind of understand that there is that other layer of how, or the ways that we experience stress, because otherwise it can just kind of all feel super overwhelming, right? But what I wanted to really talk about today, so that was kind of left over from yesterday, but what I really wanted to talk about today is how do we handle stress? Like I said at the beginning, you're gonna experience it at some point in your life, and like I said in the last video, if you're not, you're lying. But the ways that we manage it and how we experience it is really the way that we succeed, right? And that we can prosper and move on to something greater. Because otherwise we just kind of stay stuck in that rabbit hole of like spinning around on whatever that one issue is. So I want to talk about, there's 6 ways that I can kind of think of right off the top of my head, and they kind of are the go-to, right? I'm sure everyone could kind of pull them out if they had to. So let's just kind of run through those. So my first one that I have is walking, especially in nature. If you can get outside somewhere near sunshine or trees or animals, right? Walking can be super, super powerful. It's super simple, but it's also really powerful. Kind of going along with that, exercise. I have down in my notes, preferably a method of exercise that is not super stressful. So I know that a lot of the workouts these days are centered around things like CrossFit, or maybe those like super extreme tough mudders, which are awesome. I mean, they can be great workouts, and the Tough Mudder is like a really nice way to build community and all of that. But if you're doing those super intense workouts day in and day out, your body's no longer gaining the positive benefits from it. It actually interprets it as a stress. So if you remember from my other video, the body and the brain can't determine what is real stress and what's negative. So if you are putting yourself through these grueling workouts day in and day out without proper rest and recovery, like maybe a professional athlete would, even professional athletes, right, feel that strain. It's intense for your body, which means that it's stressful. And what I didn't mention before is that they're all kind of connected. So just because you're having a structural, say, stress, right, which is what we're talking about with these super intense workouts, doesn't mean that your emotional and your feelings, your sort of mental aspect is completely unrelated. That can absolutely be affected by the structural stress. So just kind of realizing, so I just have in my notes, like preferably a lower stress method of exercise so that your body is able to reap those positive benefits. The third one that I have is breathing. Super simple again, but oftentimes we don't do it, especially when we probably should be doing it. A really good way to get your breathing in, and actually it'll help with digestion and all that, which can be another stress, is to breathe while you're eating. So we need oxygen to digest our food. And if you're just like 1 bite, 2 bites in your mouth and then down into your stomach, done, that's not good, right? That can cause a lot of stress. So try breathing when you eat or before you eat and then after you eat. And let me know if it makes a difference. I know it has made huge differences for me, but that's a whole nother video. Okay, so meditation, one of my absolute favorites. If you watched anything else that I've done, I usually talk about meditation because it has literally changed my world. It is absolutely amazing. And often, like I mentioned, it's not about clearing your mind. So our brains were meant to think and process and work for us, right? That's why we're humans and not animals. And so it's kind of impossible to clear your brain. Maybe, right? If that was what you wanted to do and go to some like retreat where all you did was meditate for 7 days. But if you're just trying to incorporate this into your daily routine, not clearing your mind, it's okay. Let those thoughts come and then just gently guide them out the door, right? You go over here because I'm trying to be a little more calm, a little more still than maybe I am when I have my eyes open and I'm, going about my day. The next one up, kind of related to that, because in my thoughts, it's like a active meditation, is journaling. So I also think of it as free writing. It is literally about dumping everything that is in your brain onto paper. And I'm talking no edits for grammar, no edits for, oh, I should have said this instead of this, oh, I shouldn't talk about this, or, oh, that person would think, none of that, right? So complete open book. A piece of paper, a pen, a pencil, preferably pen and pencil, right? So there's studies that show that pen and paper connection is really powerful. But if you want to type, that's totally fine. But get those thoughts out. Put them down on paper. Even if you tear those pieces of paper up and stick them in a trash can, it doesn't matter. Go and put those thoughts, give them a home other than your brain. Because when they stay in your brain, they, just spin on top of each other and they become something bigger than they are. Talk about mental, emotional stress, right? And then the last one I have is just talking it out. Like I've mentioned in other videos, I work with coaches all the time, therapists. I'll often just call up my sister and be like, yo, you gotta be a sounding board right now. Don't really say anything. I'm just gonna talk out loud about whatever's going on. And 9 times out of 10, I have a solution at the end of those conversations. So finding a coach, a therapist, a trusted confidant that can really be a neutral sounding board for you is amazing. If you haven't tried it, please go try it. I will be your sounding board, okay? So those are kind of 6 quick ways to deal with stress, right? Really obvious. Most people could have probably thought of them, but they're super powerful. But they're often not enough. So if you don't learn how to process your stress, right? So really think through it, all the steps that it entails, or where it came from, or why it's happening, that stress is going to continue to come up. So if you've ever tried to breathe or maybe tried to meditate, which I feel like is a lot of the reason why people don't want to meditate, I know it was for me in the beginning, is I feel like as soon as I close my eyes, my mind is just racing, right? And it's because I'm not really processing the stress, I'm trying to like shove it down, which might work temporarily, but in the long term, it's just going to kind of compound and probably come out in a bigger fashion than it needs to, or maybe than you'd like, right? So I want to talk about processing the stress. And for me, that is realizing that everything is right on time. So if you've listened to some of my other videos, or maybe if you haven't, I'm a firm believer that everything is happening exactly as it needs to. I will often post quotes like, "You are right on time, I am right on time. Everything that needs to be happening right now is happening exactly as it is." And how do we know that? Because it is, right? If it was meant to be another way, that would be happening, right? But irregardless, even if you don't feel like that, just coming back to this thought that you are in the right space, right? Exactly where you need to, which kind of connects back to what I was talking about at the beginning, which is that spiritual can be, right? If there's a lack of spiritual connection, whatever that means for you, religion, spirituality, or even just that understanding of where you place in this big wide world that we have, a lack of that can be really stressful, right? So just kind of reevaluating where your beliefs lie in that. And then related to that is understanding that there is a lesson in everything. So we're really quick to believe when everything is going our way, that everything's right on time. Yes, everything's happening just as it should be. Yeah, life is great, right? Awesome. And then when something happens that we don't think should be happening, why is this happening? This is crap, right? How come this is happening? This is horrible. But what if it was all on time? And those things that we didn't necessarily want to be happening needed to be happening all the same. And so for me, talking about processing that stress is finding that value, finding that lesson. Some people like to call it the silver lining, right? There's a silver lining in everything, in whatever is happening. And that is so enormously powerful that it just takes some of the pressure off, right? So if you can think of like a stressful situation as a balloon being blown up and blown up and blown up, and the more you want to fight it and think, why is this happening? This is horrible, whatever. The balloon is just getting bigger and bigger. And what is eventually going to happen? Obviously, it's going to pop, right? Especially if the balloon has a capacity. You reach that capacity, done. But if you can find value or lesson or understanding in whatever's going on, then you can let some of that air out, maybe even all of the air out. And then the issue just becomes this thing that happened, because really that's what it is. We put our perceptions on an issue, and that makes it stressful. It's like I talked about in the first video, right? It doesn't matter if it's a lion standing in front of us or our beliefs about whatever's happening. If we believe it to be stressful, it feels stressful. So if you can find that silver lining, that value, that lesson, you can let out some of that air and it can feel so much better, like so much relief, right? Just that feeling of relief washing over you. So that's what I wanted to cover today, guys. Oh, hey, Russell, Michael, hi, guys. It was really all about handling stress, because we're guaranteed to experience it. So finding those ways that work for you can be life-changing, right? So just kind of connecting it all back in. Those 6 ways that I listed at the beginning, once you process the stress, to go back then and then add in your meditation and your walking and your journaling. Because otherwise, I mean, I know I've certainly had those moments where I'm like, okay, I'm going to journal, and everything's like, F this, right? This sucks. This is horrible. I can't believe this is happening. Why is this happening to me? All of this, which is fine. If you need to have those moments, absolutely have them. Get it out, put it out there, right? Whatever. But the goal eventually is to get to a space where you don't feel like that, because no one wants to walk around like that all the time. So when you can process it, then you can go to the journaling or the walking or the meditation. And I promise you, you will feel so much different after doing those exercises, instead of trying to force yourself to sit there and meditate and be like, okay, right, I'm closing my eyes, I'm breathing, nothing's happening, I still feel more stressed out because now I can't do it, right? So learning how to process was my main goal for this video. Like I said in my one yesterday, if this stuff is resonating with you, let me know. I am feeling so uber passionate about everything that I'm learning right now in this new program and incorporating it with everything that I was doing before that I just feel like I'm on fire, which is awesome. So let me know what your thoughts are. Either drop them in the chat below or send me a PM and we'll chat because this stuff is super interesting. So I'll be back next week with another video letting you know where I'm at in my journey and what's going on even as I continue my classes and all that kind of process for myself. So I'll talk to you guys next week. Have a great weekend. Bye.